After their disastrous loss against the Golden State Warriors on Sunday night, a new report sheds light on what the Houston Rockets can do to gain an advantage in Game 2 of their first round series, and it could have a huge implication on whether or not this team stays in this series. Hello, everybody. I am Donovan Ricondo. I'm your host for Rockets Digest, where we break down all the latest news, rumors, and updates regarding your H-Town team. And it has been a rough couple of days considering the disastrous playoff loss regarding the first round series between the Houston Rockets and the Golden State Warriors, and things were not pretty at all during this game. Offensively, we were shut down. The only person that decided to show up on Sunday night was Alperen Şengün, getting himself 26 points in that game. Jalen Green, absent. Fred VanVleet, absent. This was not the type of production. This was not the typical Rockets team that played all year and that played at a level of being the second seed. They, quite frankly, the way they played yesterday, they are looking probably like, besides the Grizzlies who got blown out by 50, are looking as one of the weaker teams in terms of first games played in the playoffs. They did not show up at all. And so in this video, I want to break down what a new report suggests about what we can do, and also why I think there is some validity to this report. Again, look at these stats right here on the board. Amen Thompson, 8 points. Shooting from the 3-point line, not very great at all. Jabari Smith Jr., getting 11. Like it's just like a very subpar game from all these guys. And offensively, we only scored 85 points in the game, which, is one terrible, but you also held Golden State to 95 points. If you were going to be told at the beginning of the game, hey, you're going to not keep these guys 95 and lower, you would say, oh, offensively, we would have won that game. But obviously, things did not pan out the way the Rockets, in the Rockets' favor on Sunday night. And so I want to get to the report from Will Udy of Space City Scoop. And he says, we got to change the rotation. Not drastically, but just giving guys like Cam Whitmore and Reed Sheppard more gameplay in Game 2. And he mentions that the trio of Jalen Green, Amen Thompson, Fred VanVleet went a combined 11 for 43 from the floor last time out. And so I understand, like, Cam Whitmore and Reed Sheppard have not played much minutes this year. And quite frankly, we really haven't needed them to play those substantial minutes. I mean, we have done a fairly good job with our 8 to 9 player rotation, and for the most part, it got us to where we are. We were a second seed going to the playoffs as one of the hottest teams in the NBA. But the playoffs are all about, matchups and adjustments and what can you throw at the other team to get them, discombobulated out of their normal rhythm, things that they might not have prepared for. And I think instilling these two guys into the roster, into the lineup, could have a good impact on our chances in Game 2. Now, I'm not saying, replace Jalen Green with Cam Whitmore. That's not the solution. Jalen Green for, heading into the playoff series, I was very high on Jalen Green. I believe he could be the scorer that we needed him to be in this series. Game 1 was not evidence of that. And so we still want him, guys like Amen Thompson, guys like Fred VanVleet, to step up their game and, be the players that they were all season. But if you instill these guys like Whitmore and Sheppard, it can offer an offensive spark that you did not have in Game 1. And I just want to go to what Coach J.J. Redick once said about these guys in terms of, what they could be and how good caliber players they actually are. Both would be rotation players on nearly every team and potential starters on a lot of teams. Both really good players, and they are. I mean, the stats, I'm going to show you their stats. They did not play much minutes all year, especially Reed Sheppard. 4.4 points per game, 1.5 rebounds, 1.4 assists, and then you got a guy like Cam Whitmore who played a little bit more, 9 points per game with 3 rebounds, 1 assist. And so like these stats, they're not meant to be like popping off. Like they're not. I'm not saying these guys are like offensive geniuses that, like I understand what their stats are. All I'm saying is that Coach Ime Udoka has a decision to make. And I think that he is not afraid to do what he thinks would be beneficial to the team. For example, recently we had a game against the Philadelphia 76ers. It was one of the overtime games that we played this season. And I don't know if you remember, but in that game, he decided to bench Alperen Şengün. He benched him for essentially that entire second half. And to his credit, we did slowly creep back into that game. And eventually, Şengün ended up making the I believe the game tying basket at the end of that, and then ended up popping off in overtime. But what Coach Ime Udoka did at that time was he put a guy who is our only all-star, and he sat him down. And when a player like that sits, they can either react one of two ways. They can either react to like, oh, this is BS. Why am I not in the game? I don't want to go in the game. Very negatively. Or he can do what Şengün did. Come back at the end of the game when his team really needed him to get a tip-in basket and really needed him to score in overtime and elevated himself to that position. And so what I think Ime can do in terms of game 2 is, put Cam Whitmore in, put Reed Sheppard in, have them do some things, have them do some damage, because someone's not getting as much playing time, whether that be Jalen Green, Amen Thompson, or Fred VanVleet. If you put in a guy like Sheppard, if you put in a guy like Whitmore, someone's got to come off, right? And so based on what this team has shown me, they have that fight in them. There's a little bit of competitiveness, of course, with these players amongst each other and with other teams. And if I think some possible bench time for some of these guys to kind of like reinvent their mindset and what they can do for this team could be beneficial. And of course, having guys like Whitmore and Sheppard who's a fantastic shooter, and Whitmore who's a great scorer, could be the spark that this team needs. Now, I'm not saying that this is, the one and only solution. I think we could also do fine just with the rotation that we have now if they simply just shot the ball better, because sometimes you just have off nights, and that's completely understandable. That's something that VanVleet said in the post game conference. Sometimes you just have off nights, and that's completely valid, completely okay, or not okay, but like I understand that reasoning. But if this is a trend that continues, like if say same rotation game 2, same thing happens. Jalen Green doesn't show up. Maybe Şengün doesn't show up. Someone doesn't show up. If this is a continual problem within game 2, you're going to have to make changes. You're going to have to. Because the Golden State Warriors, even though they want, for a fact, they're scheming up something that can throw us off. They still have Curry. They still have playoff Jimmy. They're going to do a lot of things to make it harder on guys like Jalen Green and guys like Amen Thompson, who are in their first playoff series. Because quite frankly, this right here is not going to cut it. It is not. You can't have one scorer with 20 and then everyone else with 11 or less. That is not going to do it in the NBA postseason. And so this is something to consider. This is something that Ime Udoka is going to have to think about. What can he do to the lineup to change it a little bit, give it some flair, give it some spark, so that the Houston Rockets have the best chance of winning game 2. This is certainly something I think could work. It could work. We've seen, Sheppard and Cam Whitmore play in the last games, both having some pretty fair games too. They're certainly capable of providing that spark, and I think it's something that Coach Ime Udoka should possibly consider for game 2, game 3, game 4. We'll see what happens. And that wraps it up for this video. Let me know if you think this is a great idea or if you think this is simply an overreaction. I understand that, hey, we should play 2 bench guys that haven't played much all year in the lineup in the postseason. I understand that that's a could possibly be a terrible take. Let me know. Let me know what you think we should do with these lineups. And thank you so much for joining us on this video for Rockets Digest. If you made it to the end of the video, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We'll see you guys next time.